All right, couple of conversations we're going to have quick before we start for the day. This week's layout, worksheets and book, okay? 4-6 worksheet today, 4-5 tomorrow. Yes, I know they seem backwards. Ms. Hoff doesn't like how they're set up in the book, so we do 4-6, then 4-5. Wednesday is a compare and contrast worksheet, kind of putting the two of them together. Thursday is going to be in the book, and Friday is going to be in the book. That will bring us to the end of our chapter. Some people came and talked to me on Friday, and they said, Ms. Hoff, I actually did really well on my quiz on Friday, but I still don't have a great grade in your class. And for some of us, Chapter 3 test was not good, based off of not feeling confident in our 3-6, giving up when those things got difficult. Okay, well, that's 100 points in the grade book, so it's going to take some time for that to rebound. Now, this quiz of 27 points is it's going to help, but then every single day, like, here's another 25 points. Well, between the quiz and this work, that's half a test already that you've already made up. And I will tell you, next week, we are not taking a chapter test on Chapter 4. We are going to do a project. It will take the entire week, and it will be 100 points in the grade book. Now, for most of us, that'll be a really good thing because there's different checkpoints throughout that you can make adjustments. Many of you, if not all of you, have the ability to earn 100% on this if you try. Because you have class time, you have resources, you have the ability to do that. So a project in replace of that test, I think will help a lot of your grades be able to bring that up if you put the effort into it. Okay? So just a heads up, not a chapter test, but we are doing a project for this chapter, and we'll have it done before you go to winter break so that you truthfully have no homework over winter break. Okay? Let me get your worksheet. All right. Now, we're going to draw Chapter 3 into Chapter 4. Okay? Chapter 3, we gave you a graph, or I gave you data points. You found me the slope. You could write me the equation. Well, the difference in Chapter 4 is I'm going to give you a story and still ask you to come up with the same information. So we're going to be combining Chapter 3 with Chapter 4 today. A linear function is a function that is written in the form y equals mx plus b, or in other words, slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept. Y is by itself. Y equals mx plus b. We wrote that in our our quiz last week as well as last chapter. The graph of a linear function forms a line. Linear means line. When you plot those points, they all match up on a line. You guys fill in the next blank. The blank, or in other words, m. What do we use for the letter m? Or what do we use letter m for? Say it again. Very good. Thank you. The slope of a function is also known as the rate of change. The rate of change between any 2 points in a linear relationship is constant. Now that goes way back to 3-1. This is linear because the rate of change is constant. Remind me, what does constant mean? Aiden? No. It doesn't change. It's the same. Very good. It's the same 3/2, 3/2, 3/2 every single time. The blank, or b, very good, y-intercept, or we use the letter b of a linear function, is also known as the initial value. The initial value is the corresponding y value when the x equals 0. What does initial mean? Not necessarily in math, but just as a definition, if somebody said the initial to you. What'd you say? The first, the beginning, the start. Okay? So the y-intercept is where your story or situation begins. You can construct a linear function from a graph by determining the rate of change and the initial value, and we'll write it in slope-intercept form. Okay, so here's our story for this problem, or our background. A shoe store offers free points when you sign up for the rewards card. Then, for each pair of shoes purchased, you earn an additional number of points. The graph shows the total points earned for several pairs of shoes. And you guys have had this happen. You go to a store and they're like, do you have our rewards program? And so what they're telling you is this store, as soon as you say, yeah, I want to sign up, they just instantly give you some points to start with. And then every time you make a purchase, you earn more points. All right? Very first thing that we have to do on every single problem today is to find the rate of change. The rate of change is also known as the slope. If they give me this graph, how do I find the slope?
So there's 2 and then 60
Mm-hmm.
and then 4 and 90 and then you just take that. Y minus y.
Very good. If you have 2 points, which we can pick off from the line, we can take and use our slope formula. Nicely nicely done, Calix. XY, XY. And remind me which letter goes on top? Y goes on top. Which Y do you want to start with? 60 minus 90 over 2 minus 4. 60 minus 90, negative 30. 2 minus 4, negative 2. A negative divided by a negative actually ends up being a positive. 30 divided by 2, 15 over 1. And this is really, we're going to write as 15. Okay? We've calculated the slope like a gazillion times, right? Okay, pick 2 points off your line and find the slope. Now, when I originally wrote this worksheet, I'm like, oh yeah, step 1, step 2, step 3. And now that I've done it with kids, I actually hate that it's step 1, step 2, step 3. So step 1, yes, we're going to find the rate of change. But then we're going to write the equation of the function. From there, we'll pull out the initial value. Okay? So our next part is we need to have the slope, which we just said was 15. And you need to have a point on the line. Which point do you want to use? Which point do you want to use? Hello? Zach? 260. Thank you very much. 2, 60. We have a point and the slope. Thinking back to chapter 3, we need to plug into point slope form. Does anybody remember what point slope form is? Brady.
Y minus y equals the slope, so m parentheses x minus x.
Very good. The only difference is I would put a 1 by that second y and by that first y, or second x, just so that you remember you're replacing those. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is point slope form. Now, we have the point, we have the slope, so we plug in. Y minus 60 equals 15 times x minus 2. Now, the whole purpose of this is for us to get this in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So now that I have it in point slope form, what's the first thing I have to do to get towards y equals mx plus b? Distribute. What am I distributing, Becca? You're 15, right? Okay, so y minus 60 is going to stay. 15 times x, 15x. 15 times negative 2. Very good. If I was going to say where the most common mistake was, is this sign right here. It's a positive 15 and negative 2, which this makes a negative 30. So distributing that gets rid of my parentheses. The last thing I need to do is get y by itself. What should I do to get y by itself? Add 60 to both sides. I end up with y equals 15x plus 30. Okay, box that in, because that's actually the answer to step 3. Okay? Step 2, we've done the work, but we just haven't answered the question. Remember, the initial value is your b, or the number in your equation that doesn't have a variable. So in y equals 15x plus 30, what's my initial value? 30. Or the b that's in my equation. So originally when I wrote this, I was like, oh yeah, this is such a good idea to give you step 1, step 2, step 3. Now I kind of regret it. Okay? You've done this before. This was 3-6 and 3-6 day 2 in chapter 3. All right, do it again. Flip it over. A conference center charges an initial deposit plus an hourly rate for renting the space for an event or a party. The total cost for different number of hours, including the deposit, is shown in the graph. Part A, find and interpret the rate of change. Part B, find and interpret the initial value. So now we add this word interpret. Interpret in math means I want you to give me one sentence using the labels. This morning I already heard, oh my gosh, we have to write a paragraph in math. 2 sentences, you guys. 2 sentences, and I'm not looking for anything crazy. Okay? They tell us that this whole story is about a conference center charging an initial deposit plus an hourly rate for renting the space for an event or a party. So that's what this graph is talking about, the cost to rent this space. Number 1, we need to find the rate of change. Rate of change is also known as slope. Easiest way to find slope is to write down 2 points. Somebody give me 1 point. 1, 100, and another point. 3, 150. On your own, find the slope. Y minus y over x minus x. Y minus y over x minus x. I got 25 over 1, or in other words, 25. Okay, so there's my initial value. Now, there's my rate of change. Now I have to interpret. Go back and put labels on this. What letter went on the top of slope? X or Y? Y. What is my label of Y? Cost, which we would label it as money, right? So this is $25. And then on the bottom, what label would go with that one? Hours. Okay, now I have to write an interpret sentence specific to this situation. This situation is about a conference center. So somebody write me a sentence explaining what a rate of change of 25 means in this problem. Brant? Careful. Aiden? Zach?
The total costs, or the total rental costs for, I don't have my train of thoughts there.
Okay. Jack?
To rent a conference center, it costs $25 per hour.
Perfect. The cost, or to rent the conference center, it will cost $25 per hour. You've made the number calculation. Now I need you to describe what it means in this story, because the rate of change in every single one of these is going to be different. Okay? So for our initial value, we need a point on the line. What point do you want to use? Say it again. 1, 100. And we need the slope, which is 25. All right, somebody give me line 1. Y minus 100 equals 25 times x minus 1. Okay, somebody else tell me my next step. Distribute, what am I distributing, Will?
25.
25, I'm sticking with you. What does my next line look like?
Y minus 100 equals 25x minus 25.
Nicely done. Very good. Who's got the next line for me? He distributed the 25 at 100. Our goal is to get y by itself, correct? Currently it's y minus 100, so I have to add 100 to get that to cancel. My last line should say, very good. Box that in. There's my equation. But now I got to go back really and answer what my initial value was. The initial value is your y-intercept, or the number in your equation that does not have a variable. Which number does not have a variable? 75. Okay, so Jack helped us out with interpreting the rate of change. He said to rent the conference center, it will cost $25 an hour. So somebody else tell me, what does an initial value of 75 mean in this problem? Brant? Very good. They call it a deposit. Before you even get to have the room, you have to pay an initial fee of $75. There is an initial fee of $75 before renting the room. You are going to do the same process on every problem today. Okay, so those two we're done with graphs. What happens with this next one? Now we have a table. The table shows how much money Ava has saved. Assume the relationship between the two quantities is linear. Find and interpret the rate of change in initial value, then write the equation for slope-intercept form. First thing we should calculate. Slope. How do I calculate slope from a table? Brady?
You look at how much they're adding on the x, y axis. I don't know.
Perfect. You could write these down as x comma y points like we have been. Otherwise, remember the swoops? Remember doing it this way? What is my change from 110 to 130? Plus 20. How about 130 to 150? Plus 20. And 150 to 170? Plus 20. On the other side, 3 to 4. 1, 4 to 5. 1, 5 to 6. Now the question is, though, which number goes on top? 20. 20 over 1, which in other words is 20. Now, in order to write the interpret sentence here, go back and put labels. 20, what should the label be on 20? Dollars, and 1 is months. Somebody that has not answered for me today, give me a quick sentence explaining what a slope of 20 means in this problem. Nolan? Say it again. Who does? Ava. Very good. Ava saves $20 each month or every month. Ava saves $20 each month or every month. Okay, so part 2, to get our initial value, you got to write the equation. What point do you want to use? What point do you want to use? Brady?
1,
No. 1 comma 20 will not work. Where do I get these points from, Zach? Bingo. Very good. Which one do you want to use? Excellent. 3 comma 110. And we just figured our slope was 20. On your own, find for me the y-intercept. On your own, find me the y-intercept. Y equals 20x plus 50. Box that baby in because there's your equation. There's your equation. What's my initial value? 50. Somebody who hasn't answered for me. What does that mean in this problem? Calix? Very good. Ava already had $50 before she started saving. Your y-intercept you got to talk about in the beginning or the very first piece. One more. Ready? So we've given a graph, and they gave us a table. Now this one says sometimes you have to take the information from the description. A skiing instructor charges an initial fee plus $30 per hour for lessons. Tasha paid $205 for 6 hours of instruction. Step 1, find and interpret the rate of change, or in other words, the slope. How am I going to find my slope on this one? Brady? I was just going to say, what are the key words we talked about, right? Per, $30 per hour. Do you even have to calculate it? No, they tell you your slope is 30. $30 per 1 hour. So what's my interpret sentence? Don't overthink this.
Tasha pays $30 per hour for skiing instruction.
Very good. Tasha pays $30 per hour for skiing lessons. I mean, basically they wrote that for us already, correct? For us to find the equation or the initial value, we have to have the slope, which we know is 30, but then we have to have a point on our line. What point do we have? Zach? Very good. Right here, $205 for 6 hours. Your time, whether it's minutes, hours, seconds, days, weeks, is going to be your x. So 6,205. On your own, plug that in and find for me your initial value. Plug that in and find your initial value. y equals 30x plus 25. Somebody who hasn't answered for me. What's my initial value? I'll give you the chance to answer before I call on you. Somebody who hasn't answered. What's my initial value? McKinley? 25. Somebody else who hasn't answered for me. In this problem, what does an initial value of 25 mean? Somebody who hasn't answered, don't make me cold call you. What does an initial value of 25 mean? Go back and read what this problem is about. What is the story? Agree?
25 the initial.
Okay, and what initial what? Like in our problem, what would they have to pay for?
$25 before.
Very good. Tasha pays $25 before she starts ski lessons. Nicely done. She has yet to go to any lessons, but she had to pay $25. Every single problem today, you're going to do this over and over and over, okay? Put your labels on there, reread your story, and then think about what the rate of change or your y-intercept or your y initial value would mean in this problem. You will not turn this in to the basket. You will just bring it to class tomorrow. Cool? All right, rock and roll.